Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chav Beis Amud Beis, starting with Chav Beis Amud Aleph, 2 lines from the bottom. The Gemara is discussing whether the Pasin La Beirois, whether those walls will become disqualified if the Rabbim are Bokin Boy. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they will indeed be disqualified, and therefore it's no longer going to be a Rishus HaYachid. According to the Chachamim, then it does not disturb the walls of the Pasin La Beirois. The Gemara continues along these lines. Amar Rabbi Yitzchok bar Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Eretz Yisrael ein chayavin alea mishum reshus harabim. He makes a statement as follows: when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, then we do not then mechayev somebody for carrying. That means in the reshus harabim. In other words, there's no reshus harabim in Eretz Yisrael. Yossi Rav Dimi v'kamar lo lahashmaitzo. Rav Dimi was sitting and he said over this halacha. Omar le'abai le'Rav Dimi. My taimo. What is the reason? Why should the Rishus Harabim in Chutz La'aretz be yes a Rishus Harabim to Mechayev when it comes to carrying, whereas a Rishus Harabim in Eretz Yisrael is not going to be considered to be Mechayev? Why? What's the difference? Says the Gemara on Daf Chof Beis Amud Beis at the very top. If you're going to say it's because it's surrounded on the one side, on the one area with steep rocky mountains, whereas on the other side it goes low to like a canyon, and therefore it has walls on both sides, then Bavel, and therefore it's not a Rishus Harabim Midiraisa, whereby it's also maybe to carry there, but not midiraisa as a reshus harabim. So bavel nami makiflo pras mehach giso v'digles mehach giso. Then also in Bavel you have on the one hand the Euphrates River on one side and the Tigris on the other side, and both river banks are enough to make the size of a mechitza, asar tfachim, and therefore also would not be a reshus harabim. The Kuli Alma also nami makif ukainus, and further, the ocean surrounds all of bodies of land, whereby they also have a bank that is above Eser Tfachim, making the lands not a Rishus HaRabim according to this. And therefore, says Abai the Kuli, and therefore Dilma Bailos Umarodos Ka'amris. Perhaps what you're saying is the steeps, the slopes that are going up and downwards, that is what you mean that does not have a Rishus Harabim in Eretz Yisrael, because since it's inconvenient for people to travel up these slopes or down these slopes, therefore it loses its status as a Rishus Harabim. Omar le Karkafna. He says to Abaye, Karkafna, you are a wise, distinguished man. He says as follows, Chazise l'reishoch ki be'amudi. He says, I saw your reish, meaning your Rebbe, in the Beis HaMedrash, meaning to say, I saw and I heard that the halacha is just like you said it. Ki omar Rav Yochanan lahashmaitza itmar nami. Because when Rabbi Yochanan said this halacha, he said it just like you just said it now. That indeed, the kavanah over here is the aliyos, the mailos and the marados that make it so that Eretz Yisrael does not have a Rishus Harabim. Says the Gemara, Ki also Ravina Rabbi Yochanan, Va'amri lo Rabbi Abohu Rabbi Yochanan. They said in Rabbi Yochanan's name, whether it was Ravina or it was Rabbi Abohu, Mailos umarodos shebe'eretz Yisrael ein chayavin aleh mishum rishus harabim lefi she'einan kediglei midbar. So they said the same statement, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that exactly is what Abai had said as well, and it supports that the fact, the reason why that there's no rishus harabim in Eretz Yisrael is because of these malos umarodos, and since they don't have the same status as the Diglei HaMidbar. The Diglei HaMidbar, when Klai Yisrael traveled in the Midbar, so then the Anane Kavod that straightened out the mountains and anything that was steep. So it was very flat, very level. And therefore, since there is the way that we then determine whether it's the Rishus Harabim or not, since now these are slopes that have an incline or a decline, therefore they will not have the status of Rishus HaRabim. Ask the Gemara, Boy mine Rochva me Rava. Rochva now turns to Rava and he says the following question: Tel hamislaket asora mitoich arba v'rabim boikim boy chayovin alov mishum Rishus HaRabim or ein chayovin alov. Rochva asks Rava, if you have a tail, a mound of dirt, and that mound of dirt has the status as a Rishus HaYochid, because of the walls that steeps up to it, does that also have the status as a Rishus HaRabim, where it's also to metaltel in it, or not? In other words, even though the Rabim are going to be going over this place, does this mean that it now is mevatel the mechitos? We learned again in our Mishnah that there's a machloikis in regards to if you have pasin la berois and you have the Rabim that are boikin boy, do the Rabim then mevatel the mechitos or not? So we saw that Rabbi Yehuda says it does mevatel mechitos, whereas the Rabbanan said it does not. So now Rochva asked Rava, what about over here in regards to the tail, in regards to the mound of dirt? Will that also be something that is considered to be mevatel the mechitzos by the Rabim, whereby it'll be considered Rishus HaRabim your chayev boy for metalteling inside or on top of it, or not? Answers Rava, or before the answer, he explains, Ali b'derabbanon lo tiboilach. According to the Rabbanan, it's not a question, because again, the Rabbanan said that the Rabim that are boiking in the Pasin Berois, which has more convenience to travel on, that is not mevatel the mechitzos. So then hashto mahasam denicha de tashmishte amri Rabbanon lo yosir Rabbanon vatle lo mechitzosa hacha de lo nicha tashmishte lo koshekain. If the Rabbanan say in our Mishnah that it's not mevatel the mechitzah, where the tashmish, the usage, is very convenient, then certainly over here, when it's less convenient because you have to go up the steep to the mound, certainly it will not mevatil the mechitzos. So it's not a question according to the Rabbanon. Kitiboy loch alibo de Rabbi Yehuda. This question that Rachva is posing is according to the Rabbi Yehuda, who said in our Mishnah that it is yes mevatil the mechitzos. Do we say the same thing over here or not? As follows: My hasum hu deneicha tashmishte. When does Rabbi Yehuda say that the Rabbim are mevatel mechitzos? When it's a convenient form of usage. And therefore in our Mishnah, by the passing the Berois, we say it is a mevatel according to Rabbi Yehuda. However, over here, where it's less convenient, maybe Rabbi Yehuda would say differently, that the Rabbim are not mevatel the mechitzos. Or dilma, loishna, or does not make a distinction between the two. Omar le, Rava responds to Rachva's question, Chayovin. One would be obligated for being metaltil as a Rishus HaRabim on this mound. Because it is mevatil the mechitzos when the Rabim are then boikin boy. Asks Rachva further, Vafilu oilin loy bechevel, even if one would need a chevel to grab onto in order to then hold himself up to then climb on top of the mound. It's that steep. He answers in the positive, Amalein. Yes, indeed, it would still be mevatel mechitzos, whereby he would be chayiv. Vafilu b'ma'alois beis meiroin, even when it comes to the heights, meaning the slope of beis moron, where they had to walk single-filedly. Is that also going to mevatel the mechitzos? In other words, it's very inconvenient for people to then walk on these mounds. Would that also mevatel the mechitzos? And thereby will be a Rishus HaRabim that won't be chayev for? Or marlein, again, he says yes. So Rava says that indeed, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no distinction between our Mishnah and passing the Berois, or the case over here of the tail. In both cases, the Rabbim will then mevatel the mechitzos, and it'll be a Rishus HaRabim, whereby you'd be chayiv for being metaltel on this mound. Eisvei asked the Gemara, Chotzer sheharabim nichnasin lo bezu v'yotzim bezu. If you have a chotzer, which is not so convenient to travel through, and the Rishus HaRabim and the public is then going through and entering and leaving. The din is that in regards to Tuma, it has the status of Rishus HaRabim, but in regards to Shabbos, as in Rishus HaYochid. So we see that the Rabbim are not boiking boy to mevatel mechitzas. So ask the Gemara, Mani, Ileim Rabbanon, if this is referring to the Rabbanon's halacha, then it's superfluous. Hashto mahasan denechet hashmishte, amri Rabbanon loy osu Rabbon vatli mechitzasa. If the Rabbanan say where it's convenient to then go ahead and walk through the Pasina Berois, and it's not mevatel mechitzos, so here by the Chatzor where it is inconvenient to then walk through, certainly they will not mevatel the mechitzos. So we cannot be then referring to the Rabbanan because this would be superfluous. Rather, this must be according to Rabbi Yehuda that is saying that the din is that it's not mevatel the mechitzos. So we have a kasha on Rava. Says the Gemara, loy. It's not a kasha on Rava because lo'olam rabbanon rishas harabim letuma itzrichale. Really, it's the Rabbanon. And the Chiddush, according to the Rabbanon, is that you might have thought that in regards to Tuma, when you have a suffix status of whether something is Tameh or not, then it would have the din of Rishus HaYachid. The Chiddush over here is the din of Rishus HaRabim. We're Mekil, and we say that it's Tohor. And therefore, it's true in regards to Shabbos, it's not a Chiddush, but the Chiddush is being taught in regards to the Tuma. And therefore, it's not a kasha on Rabbi Yehuda. Ask the Gemara more further on the Shita that Rava just explained. That indeed, Rava wants to maintain that Rabbi Yehuda says that it is mevatel mechitzas. Ask the Gemara. Toshma mevuos hamufulashois bibarois b'shichin uvamarois rishus hayochi la Shabbos rishus harabim l'tuma. Here it states that you have mevuos that are alleys that are open on both sides. In the barois, in the shich, in the ma'arois, different things that are dug up. So, in regards to the Shabbos as a din of Rishus HaYachid, in regards to Tumah as a din of Rishus HaRabim. So here again you see, L'chara, that the Rabbim who then are traveling through these mivois, it's a public, is going through towards the Rishus HaRabim, the people are traveling through, and still, it's not mevatel, it has a din of Rishus HaYachid in regards to Shabbos. Ask the Gemara just technically on the lashon of this brisa before it asks its question. Beboros salke daitach. Do you really think that we're talking about mevuos, open alleys that are actually inside of the boros? That's the mashmos of the lashon, that it's in the boros, in the shich, and in the ma'aros. Is that so? Can that be possible? Ella, the Gemara explains, no, lib boros. It means that it's leading to boros. It means that you have a bor that is going to be, let's say, at the end of the mavui, before going out again. So it says, Rishus HaYachid l'Shabbos, Rishus HaRabim l'Tuma. And still the din is, we see, that in regards to Shabbos, as din of Rishus HaYachid. Mani, who are we talking about here? Ileima Rabban, again, if we're talking about the Rabbanan, then it's going to be superfluous. Because again, the Rabbanan already stated in our Mishnah a greater chiddush, that the Rabbim are not mevatel mechitzos, even when it's convenient. Ilem Rabban hashto umahasan denechet hashmishte amrei loy osu Rabban vatli lo. The Rabban say it's not mevatel mechitzos. Hacha de lo nechet hashmishte lo kol shekain. Here, where it's not convenient to go through, certainly they would say you're not mevatel the mechitzah. So we're not talking about the Rabbanan because there wouldn't be a chiddush. Elo lav Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, as in not Rabbi Yehuda. Now we're left with the question that Rabbi said before that according to Rabbi Yehuda that he would say that they are mevatel the mechitzahs. Yet over here we see that it's a Rishus HaYachid in regards to Shabbos. Says the Gemara, loy. You have no kasha on Rava because lo'olam Rabbanon. Really, it is the Rabbanan over here. What's the chiddush we said? Rishus harabim letuma istrichale. Again, the same chiddush that we said before in regards to the Rishus harabim. When it comes to tuma, which is we have a dubious status, we have a suffix over here, whether something is tamei or not, let's say a kli or a person. So if it's in this place, so we say that it has the din of Rishus harabim, whereby it's going to be tahor. In other words, we go lakula. And that's the Chiddush. And then agav that we say in regards to Shabbos as din of Rishus HaYachid. Toshma, the Gemara asks a third kasha on Rava. Shvilei Beis Gilgul. Beis Gilgul, in the Shvilei Beis Gilgul are the paths that are sloped, that are found in Eretz Yisrael. V'kayoytze behen, Rishus HaYachid, the Shabbos, Rishus HaRabim, Letuma. They have the din of Rishus HaYachid in regards to Shabbos. So again, we're going to ask the similar question on Rava. How can Rava say that Rabbi Yehuda maintains that Rishus HaRabim, then when the Rabbim are going through, they are going to mevatel the mechitzos. Hare, it states over here that it has the din of Rishus HaYachid. They're not mevatel mechitzos. Ve'ezu shvilei beis gilgul. What are the shvilei beis gilgul that we're talking about? Amrei debei Rabbi Yonai kol she'ein ha'eved yachol litol so shel chitim ve'yorutz lifnei sardiyot. Any time an eved cannot take a saw of chitin and run up to an officer. In other words, it's so slopey that it's hard for him to run up with a saw of chitin. So, ask the Gemara Mani, the Rabbanon. If you're going to say that it's the Rabbanon, then again, there won't be a Chiddush. Because Hashdu Mahasam Deneicha Tashmishto Amrei Rabbanon Lo Yosu Rabbanon Vatri Lemachitzasa. Where the Rabbanon say where it's convenient for the public to go through, it's not mevatel mechitzos like in our Mishnah. Then then certainly over here when it's not convenient to go up these shvilim because they're sloped, certainly the Rabbanim will say it's not mevatel the mechitzos. Ella, the chiddush has to be only according to Rabbi Yehuda. It must be altered by Rabbi Yehuda. Ella Rabbi Yehuda. Omar le, the Gemara answers it's not a kasha on Rava. Why? Because Shvili Beis Gilgul Ka'amris, you're talking about the Shvili Beis Gilgul. Yehoshua, Oyhev Yisrael. Yehoshua, who was the one who then conquered and then apportioned the land, he was an Oyhev Yisrael. Meaning to say, Omad V'tikenem Drochim V'sartya. Yehoshua bin Nun, he then determined what was going to be the drochim, the pathways, as well as the public thoroughfares. Whenever it was nicha, it was convenient for the rabbim, so he made it a public sector. And it was not convenient for the rabbim, then he then apportioned those to the private sector. So it comes out that which we said initially, that it's the milos umoroidos in Eretz Yisrael that are not going to then give the status of Rishus HaRabim in Eretz Yisrael. That was what Rabbi Yochanan taught us. That's saying in regards to what we're saying over here, because they're private. They have the din of a private sector. And that's why it's not a din of Rishus HaRabim. And that's what we meant before, again, when Rabbi Yochanan made that statement of Milos Marodos Shebe Eretz Yisrael and Chayavin Aleh Mishum Rishus HaRabim. Lefi she'einan kidigle midbar. It means to say that when Yoshua bin Nun, he apportioned such land to be Rishus HaYachid. And therefore, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree over here that it's not going to mevatel the mechitzos, because this is private sector. Anybody who owns a privately owned place, certainly that's not going to have then the status of being mevatel the mechitzos just because people might walk through it, and therefore maintains the status of Rishus HaYachid. The Gemara now brings the next Mishnah in regards to pasin la beirois. The following, when do we say that we can make pasin la beirois? So we have two different types of things. We have something called a water source from a be'er, which is a natural water source, a spring. And we have that which is a dug up bore, a pit that we bring either water manually or the rain gathers together in that bore. So there's a machlokes now. When can you make pasin la beirois? Can you make it for a be'er and a bor, or only a be'er and not a bor? Let's see. Says the Mishnah, Echad bor harabim, ube'er harabim, ube'er hayachid, oislehem pasin. Rabbi Akiva says, he's our Tanakam over here, that he says, you can go ahead and make pasin la beirois for both a bor berabim and a be'er, bein if it's rabim or if it's yachid. Aval lebor hayachid oisin loy mechitza gavoya asar tfachim. Di Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva again says that you can make a pasin laberos for a bear, whether it's for rabim or for yachid, because a bear, a natural water spring, that doesn't dry up. So therefore, that you can make the pasin laberos. The bore, even though a bore does sometimes dry up, so therefore, when it comes to a yachid, we'll say that you cannot make such pasin laberos because people might then use it subsequently, and it was only given a heter to be used when there is water. However, when it comes to a bor derabim, so then people remind each other that they cannot use it, and therefore Rabbi Akiva permits pasin beros if it's going to be a bor berabim. However, if it's a bor de yachid, then you have to make regular walls. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bavoy, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bavoy is more strict. He says, Ein oisin pasin ela leve'er harabim bilvad. The only time that you can go ahead and make pasin laberois is for a be'er shel rabim. Because after all, a be'er could dry up. It's not likely, but it could. And therefore he's machmir and says, you can only make pasin laberois for a be'er lerabim. L'sha'ar oisin chagura gavoya asar tfachim. But whether it's a bear, the yachid, or a bor, the rabim, or the yachid, all the other ones, you must make regular walls. And here the Mishnah uses a lashon of chagura. A chagura is mashma, a belt, meaning it's from all sides, a proper wall of asara tfachim.